Hi, everybody. Welcome to our podcast, The Old College Try. I'm Peg Keough, joined by my guest, Jonathan West. Jonathan is one of our CAP experts. He has years of experience working with families on the financial aid side. Today, Jonathan and I will be talking about college visits. When should you visit? What should you do on the visits? Why does it even matter if you visit? And much more. So stick around. You won't want to miss this. All right. I am excited to be back today. I feel like I've taken a break, but it was only 1 week. And I'm super excited today. We get one of our experts is joining me, Jonathan West. So if you're in the CAP world, you know Jonathan, because Jonathan, you and I, we kind of hit the CAP world at the same time and, beta testing our original software and everything. So I've known Jonathan for years. He's a true expert in this space, also a financial advisor. And so Matt's on vacation this week. So I thought, have Jonathan on and we're going to talk about college visits because we both have professional experience around this. We both have kids. You still have one in college right now, right? Or two?
Still have one in college and just got back from a graduation this weekend. So,
Congratulations.
there's one more to go. Thank you.
That's awesome. Yeah. So we have, one could argue, even more important personal experience so we can empathize and we get the whole emotional side. So super excited to have you, Jonathan. We'll get into that conversation in a minute, but just like we always do. So if you're a new listener, Matt and I are super into music. And so when we started this podcast, we thought it would be super fun that we just share a song that we really like and why we like it. And we're actually, Eileen Campbell, one of our producers, building a playlist off of this. And if our guests are game, which Jonathan was, we have him do his song. So you want to share your song and anything you want to share about it?
This is a true oldie. I decided to go back to my college days. So we're in the late 70s in North Carolina and all the musical influences of that time. And there was a place in Blowing Rock, North Carolina called PB Scott's that was just a great club it was only open for about 5 or 10 years, but it just had fantastic acts on off nights like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday as they were traveling. And we used to go up there all the time. But my favorite, I was so glad to see him there, was Jerry Jeff Walker. And his song, Jaded Lover, is my all-time favorite song.
Oh my gosh, I got to write that one down.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great song. I'm so glad you're making a playlist now. That'll be perfect.
And who's the artist again?
Jerry Jeff Walker.
All
He
right.
he did Austin City Limits a lot on PBS, and he was part of that whole Texas music movement and kind of in part kind of started it. But he did Mr. Bojangles, which is a funny story because he didn't copyright it when he wrote it. And so he didn't get all the residuals
that's a bummer.
off of it. Yeah, I know, right. But anyway, that's my song, Jaded Lover.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to be going on Spotify and listening to that. Yeah, when I was in grad school at IU, there was this, the first time I went, and then I went later to finish grad school, but I went to get a teaching certificate. That's a whole nother conversation. But there was a place there called the Bluebird. And it was a blues place, and a lot of grad students would hang out there, or not the undergrads as much. And one time, John Mellencamp just came in, because he's from Bloomington, and he was just jamming with the guy. I love those smaller venues, and you just see these killer people. I remember I saw the Bodines. I don't know if you know them, a great band, and Princeton, when they were nobodies. Not that they're a mega band, but it's just really fun just those kind of, as opposed to being in a giant stadium situation, where you're nosebleed, you can barely see the artist, but that's great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing. So let's get in nitty gritty. So today we're going to talk about college visits, why you do them, what you should be doing on college visits, why they're important, all that kind of stuff. So let's start with that. Why are college visits important? I can chime in, you interrupt me, chime in as you want. So of course, duh, they're important because you get on campus, student gets a feel for how they feel, parents, this is going to be your child's home for 4 years. Like, how do
Mhm.
they feel on campus? And I remember when I was a kid, I mean, I loved high school, so I was kind of like, all right, I'm going to college, but I wasn't like, a lot of kids are like, I can't wait to get out of high school. So I was like, all right, I'll do this. But I kind of almost had this little anxiety in my gut, like, ooh, I'm going away. Like, high school's been great. And I had a little bit of that, but most kids, well, they'll start telling parents, like, it could be just weird stuff, like, I don't like these buildings, or I feel this is too big, or whatever it is. So it just helps. Obviously, it really helps to get a feel. That's like the main reason why, college visits are important. Other thing, and I'm going to ask you, yeah, you can speak on this, but demonstrated interest. So when we say that in the industry, John, we're always talking about that. Like, what does that mean to parents and kids in your
Colleges
mind?
wa colleges wanna see that you are interested in coming there, that you're not just sending an application in like it's a piece of junk mail or something. You're making an effort and taking some steps because, you want them and hopefully they want you. And they measure that demonstrated interest in different ways, but certainly one of them can be the college visit, especially if, you're nearby. If you don't visit and you're nearby, they kind of got a question mark there. So that's not to say they expect you to fly across the country to check out one school, but if you do, that's a feather in your cap. So you want to part of the visit is not just for the learning what's going on and see how it feels, both of which are very important, but also this demonstrated interest to show the college that you care.
Yeah, yeah. And so with that in mind, and we'll talk about nuts and bolts of when, your child's maybe a sophomore or a junior versus a senior, really getting down into it, or got admitted and are going. But just
Uh-huh.
make sure that they know you were there, right? Even if you
Right.
don't do an official tour because they're younger or whatever, just yeah, you want to get credit, if you will, for being there. So it's a good thing to do if you can do it, but the demonstrated interest is important. Now, not all colleges care about that. As a
Right.
professional, I've gone on tours at Ivy League school, I won't name it, and they were just kind of like, yeah, whatever, you guys are here, we don't really care. Like, because they just don't care, right? So, not all schools track that. And then some schools will track every interaction, and then schools in between. So we're not here telling you that every school tracks that, but Jonathan made great point. Like, if you're close and you don't go, then it just seems like, oh, this is probably just a safety school, and this kid, like, this is going to be the last choice. They want to feel like if they, the whole time they care about yields. And we've talked about this on the podcast. They care about, they give you a yes, they want that enrollment deposit, they want that student to come. So these are some of the ways that they kind of look at that and know their odds better. So, and yeah, if you live in Maine and you're looking at a UC school, okay, they're not going to hold that against you. And that was the next thing I wanted to talk about, because I've had parents, and I'm sure you have too, Jonathan, that say, like, well, I can't afford this. I can't afford to go to all these schools. My child's looking all over the country and I live on one coast. And that's really valid, and schools are really expensive. So, how do you talk to parents when they bring that up? What do you tell them?
Well, you want to learn about the school somehow. And while being on campus is totally different to me than seeing pictures, see pictures. Check out and see if you can get a virtual tour of the school
I think
because
those are like really common now.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, and sometimes they're done by the school, but other times they're done by, kind of third parties that say they're unbiased, and maybe they are, to give you kind of a behind the scenes look at the school. That's fine. That's great. I mean, you don't have to bankrupt the budget to go for just a visit, just to show some demonstrated interest. I mean, as we'll talk about, there may be a time where you do want to go out there and check the school out for sure. But I think you can try to come up with other ways to get both a feel for the school, talk to some students from your kid's high school that have been to that school, and also you can show that demonstrated interest in some other ways. If a visit is not in the cards early, then you can show that demonstrated interest in some other ways.
yeah, yeah, and sign up if they, have texting or follow up on social media, whatever. My kids have been out
Email,
for a bit.
yeah,
Yeah,
send them
email,
some
like,
email.
and also, if you're interested in a school and you reach out, like my daughter was in social work, if she reached out to the social work department, like that's that's contact. That's showing that you're interested. So we don't want people to feel stressed that they can't visit every school. Like I'll share my kids. So I have twins, and between the two of them, I think they each applied to like 9 schools, 10 schools. So
Mhm.
there was no way in hell we were going to 20 camp, and some of them there was overlap. So maybe it was 15 schools. We didn't really do, I mean, I can't remember. They went around with my parents just for fun and saw a few of them, but a lot of them, actually in North Carolina, they did. We were not boots on the ground when they applied. They did their research, and my husband and I did our research. We're like, okay, this looks good. I don't even know if they had virtual tours back then, to be honest, like in 2011, 2012. They may not have even had that. I can't remember, but anything they could do to go, yeah, this is worth the effort and the essays and the money to apply makes sense. My husband and I weren't going to all these schools. So, and I slept at night and didn't worry about it, right? So that's where we want to alleviate that stress, because I know there's so many places in this journey where parents get stressed, and that just shouldn't be one of them. And if a school's going to fault you for not spending $800 to fly across country, then it's not the school for your kid. Don't worry about it, right? But I think most schools take that into account. How did you guys handle it with your kids?
We did everything, every possible way to do visits, every strategy. I've got a personal experience with all of them, from doing it early to doing it late, and traveling to just getting in the car and going an hour away, or 15 minutes in one case. I mean, it's important, I think, to also to make the point that there's not, you want to do it in a way that kind of works, as Peg's saying, not just financially, but also, when do you have the time? And do you want to knock out a few? We're going to
Right.
talk about that at
Yeah.
once. So, are you going to do them hit and miss when you grab a day or something like that? And so we did it, every way. We did it, you know, off season and in season. And there was no one answer.
Yeah, and we lived in Seattle at the time, and there were no schools driving distance that my kids looked
Mm.
at. I mean, they would, I
That's
don't
too
even
bad.
know. Baylor was probably the closest in Texas, so
Mm.
ours was, or I guess there were a few in California my daughter applied to. So it was always a plane ride. So we were just like, no, that's not gonna be part of the budget until we actually know you got in. And we'll talk about that, like then we decide she didn't even visit everywhere she got in. So, and again, we're sharing our opinions today to give you an idea about this. I mean, obviously you decide what you want to do, but so that's fine. So but let's talk about now about visiting. So your child gets in, and you're this is the short list. There's 2 or 3 of them. In my opinion, at that point, if you can make it work financially, and if you can't, you can't. But if you can, you got to have boots on the ground. Like my daughter went to James Madison, and I had never been to the campus. And this was like looking like the top school. And my parents had taken her when they were visiting my parents, and we were off doing something. And I said to my husband, we got to have boots on the ground if we're going to send all this money here for the next 4 years. I mean, and then I just loved JMU when I went there. Grew up in Jersey, had tons of people that went to JMU. I just never had been in the town or on campus. So that was our deal. Like, if we're going to pay, we got to
Mhm.
go see this place. Plus, my daughter had already seen it. But if your child hasn't seen it too, I think it's just really important that they kind of have that gut check, and they know that they feel like, yeah, this is where I want to make my home for the next 4 years. If you can make it work financially.
Totally. You've got it. I agree completely. You don't want the first time that you set foot on campus to be when you're saying goodbye. No, you
Yeah.
you want to get there and check it out. And it's
And
probably going to
and
be
your
fine.
child.
And that visit is a little bit different to me than the visit earlier on, when you're gathering more information and you're seeing, is it a good fit kind of things. But at this point, you're already in. It's down to the short list. There's obviously a lot of things you like about it. So you want to maybe be a little more practical in this visit than in one of the earlier
Yeah, yeah.
type of
So
visits.
that's a great segue. So let's first talk about your child's a freshman, sophomore, junior, just starting to think about college, one, or starting to build a list, and a junior. What would you say about that visit? How that, and then we'll talk about, okay, now you're trying to make a decision visit and what's different potentially between the two of them and what you're trying to do.
Well, I think that that first visit is really you can let your kid take the lead, so to speak. You can see how, there are many stories, and we both surely lived these too, where visits where parents loved the place and the kids hated it, or vice versa. And then you get in the car, and it's like because a lot of times you get split up on visits and doing things, and one program for the kids, one program for the parents. These are the official type visits, and you get in the car afterwards, and you're thinking one thing, and it just like comes out wrong, and a lot of times with teenagers, that means the worst thing you can do is state your opinion firmly about something that you like and think would be good for them, even if you're sure you're right, because that just
Yeah.
um, so you want to be careful about that. You want to let them kind of take the lead in that sense and listen to them. What was their experience? What did they think about the things they saw? You can, you've had your time years ago. Now this is their time, and just kind of, you can guide them and talk to them about it later more. But at first, let them take the lead in that visit. And then really, I think the official tours, the information sessions that they have are great. I mean, they're a good way to learn information about what's going on with a school. But early on, a lot's going to change between especially sophomore year and senior year. So you don't need to get too caught up in it, that it's a real big deal. I don't think when you're
Yeah.
doing one of
Yeah.
the very early visits.
Yeah, if your child's younger and they're not really, and also your kid, like what's their mindset? Are they just kind of doing this because you're dragging them along? Or are they
Right.
like, yeah, I'm super excited to go look at schools. Like I always tell people, once your kid gets to be high school and you're on vacation, if there's just a university or college around, just go walk on the campus. You don't even need to do an official tour, and just expose them. And like my family is big Notre Dame family. I'm like the total black sheep, the only one who didn't go. My uncles, and it's a long history. But all I knew was Notre Dame. So when my dad took me college shopping, I was like, this doesn't look like Notre Dame. And Notre Dame is drop dead gorgeous and is a very specific sort of campus. And my parents did the opposite of what you're supposed to. Like, I never was exposed to, and I lived in Jersey, like you could throw a rock and hit 3 campuses. I had never been on a college campus except Notre Dame. So it was fine, but that was my frame of reference. Like, there's cars driving through this. I don't like this. This isn't like Notre Dame. And I had to figure out what my place was, and that was my only frame of reference. You just wanted to expose your kids. And I love your comment about their teenagers, because my mom did exactly that. We went to see main campus Penn State. Literally, my friend and I've said this before on the podcast, they filled out the application in pencil in the back seat and threw it in the mailbox. Like, that's how easy it was back then. But my mom adored the place. She was like, this is where you gotta go. And it was almost like, God, mom's way too into this. I don't want to go here. It was nothing against Penn State, but it was just like I was a teenager. And I was like, I know my mom really wants me to go. Yeah. I don't know if I want to, so your parenting advice is like 100%. Like, just listen to them. Obviously, if your child is getting excited about a school that you just think like there's no way, still just listen. And if it comes, because probably this is going to morph a million times because they're kids, of what they want to do, but that is super valid. You're not living vicariously through them. Like, this is their next chapter. And it's sometimes it's hard and it's funny when you hear what kids say, but it is good to kind of listen and keep your mouth shut. But I think that's a great thing. Just go on campuses before it's even an official thing that your family's really digging in on. That's kind of the beginning of tours. Then it gets to what you're talking about, sophomore, junior year, and they all have tours, right? Well, they have financial aid sessions. They have admission sessions usually by the 2 departments, and then they will do tours. My daughter at JMU was a tour guide. It was, I think, harder to get into a sorority than to be a tour guide. It was really, really competitive. And those are great because these kids are highly trained. My daughter didn't get paid, but at a lot of campuses they do. It's a job. So it's a great opportunity to actually talk to a student. The one thing I will say is they can say certain things, but they can't, they're representing the university. It's a job. So if a parent says, well, how much partying is there? Are their kids drunk? Like, they're not going to be able to go, well, yeah, in my dorm, there's a lot of drinking and kids are falling all over the stairs. Like, they're not going to be allowed to say that. We'll talk about later what an ideal visit is, where you can maybe get some of that information. So keep that in mind. But I mean, to me, doing a tour with a student, giving the tour with a group, that's kind of the foundation of going on a visit. Do you agree with that?
I do. I do. I love what you said about the guide. You can, I mean, they pick guides based on their personality and not just their ability to spout facts,
Yeah.
but also, on how relatable they are. And that guide is important to your visit. And you can talk to them, but you can ask them questions too that,
Yep.
open-ended questions, and not just what's the student teacher ratio or average class size, but you can ask them what their largest class was as a freshman, or you can ask them what they did the previous weekend for fun, kind of things. Just some kind of out of the box questions to get them to talk to you and open up, because they're going to be ready for all the standard questions. Believe me, they hear them 100 times a day. So you can come up with some more thoughtful questions that will maybe open some doors for you.
Yeah, yeah. And that's, I'm sure you've done tours with your kids, and I did it, just as a professional. And it's always fun to just walk up to the student as you're walking between buildings and just, what's your
That's great.
major? Where are you from? Why did you pick this school? Just all those kind of things. And I know as a teenager, a lot of times, if you're not that personality, you might be like, I don't want to do that. But the parent can do it, right? On a tour. And, the more information you can gauge and get a feel, and as you tour, you'll notice differences between how different schools handle it, and just, the atmosphere, and all of that is just really good data as you're trying to make this decision around this. I would also say too, I've seen some families like I had a woman who's now a good friend of mine who was a client, and she had this action packed, like it was like 7 schools in a week kind of thing in the East Coast. And she's like, I'm dragging Natalie along, her younger one. And Natalie was kicking and screaming. And I was like, it just wasn't fruitful, right?
Yeah,
Because she's 7th grade. She just didn't care, right?
right.
So if you're doing something like that, you might want to gauge your younger child if they really don't want to do it, and it's not you're specifically taking a college trip, it's not a vacation that you're just checking out a campus. Might not be the best idea, because it might also make that kid feel like, negative about college. Because I know sometimes people think, oh, this is a double, I can, start exposing. But if the kid's just not in that space, that mindset, it might backfire on you. And then they might be a pill and a pain in the butt, basically, on the tours too. So,
Yeah, a lot of times we parents will try to do that as a family vacation, to get double credit.
which
And
really isn't a
it's not.
vacation.
No, it's not. It's not a good idea.
Yeah, yeah. So, but I just the main thing, and when I put this in my outline, I put it in caps for myself, but and Jonathan will chime in here, but 100% the main thing. If you're just on vacation and you're stopping by a campus, great. But if you're going to start being serious and like, this is a school my child likes, we looked it up online or whatever, understand the finances with the college. Don't go on these campuses without really, you just know the sticker price, right? Whatever it is, 100,000, 75,000. If that's all you know and you don't know anything else, you're really putting yourself at a disadvantage, because you will get on these campuses and admissions and or financial aid, they will share stuff like, hey, the average family saves 25,000 here, the average family. And it's probably accurate what they're saying, but it's not complete. Like, they're not giving, if you're blah, 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 blah. And so parents will hear these statements, not knowing where they fit financially and how much it's going to cost. And if they don't remember anything else, but they remember that, and then they think, well, okay, I'll do the math in my head, I can afford that. You really, really want to understand, have a good idea at these different colleges. If you're looking at in-state schools, out-of-state publics, privates, or the highly selective privates, they all all do things differently as far as packaging and giving discounts. You want to understand that. So as we share all the time, if you haven't already, set up your free MyCap account, mycap.collegeapro.com. Understand your student aid indexes. Put in for free 3 schools and put in an in-state, put in an out-of-state, put in a private, and see what we're telling you, and then that helps you start thinking about, because this isn't really a student thing, but it's more parents. Like, you should understand this because you literally could be going to campuses where you're not going to get a discount, and you're going to hear them share about their discounts because they give them, but it might not be applicable to your family. So I say this and people usually laugh, and I tell them, I'm not joking. Sometimes people are shopping for Maseratis. I wouldn't go to the Maserati dealership when I'm looking for a car. I don't think you would either, John. I can't afford it. I don't want one either, but I can't afford one. So why would I go there? And that's what literally, if you don't do that homework as a parent, you honestly could be wasting your time and money, and then your child could fall in love somewhere. And then you say later, oop, that's not affordable, or oop, that's not affordable, but we're going to take out loans to make it neither one of those are good options. So yeah, if you could double down on me on this one, because this is super important.
This is the entire game. I mean, this is where the horse gets out of the barn for most families, the visit. Do not go visit schools that you cannot afford to pay for. I mean, it couldn't be any simpler than that. And yet, for all the reasons Peg said, families find themselves sitting in these information sessions and walking on these tours, and the campuses are beautiful. It's a perfect day weather-wise. The people running the thing are just the nicest you've ever met. I mean, everything happens and your kid loves the place.
Yeah.
And you're just like, well, I hope we can afford it. No, doesn't work. You wouldn't go, if you were buying a home and going on an open house tour, you wouldn't go see houses unless you knew what they cost, that it was within your budget. So why would you do that with a college? Just absolutely don't do it.
Yeah. Because
you never recover.
We both have seen it time and time again. And if you do take a trip and you're spending money on visits, and then that's money you're spending too, to look at schools that maybe aren't affordable. So definitely take the time to understand the affordability and at least the differences between different types of schools, and then you can set that expectation with your kids. One of our experts, JP Schmidt, tees it up really nicely, where he says, there's personal, academic, and financial fit, and the parents, academic, everybody focuses on. Like, my daughter wanted to study social work, so of course we're looking at schools that have social work. That's kind of a no-brainer. But he said the parents should dial in the financial and then say to the kids, okay, these are the schools, whatever, how many there are, 50, 70, go for it. Go research it around the whole personal fit. And then they have some agency to choose, but they're not, most families start with, go find schools you like. And it's all based on personal fit. That's what kids are looking at, right? The Greek system and football on the weekends or whatever it is. And then the financial comes in later. So for visits, definitely do that. The other thing I would say about timing is summers are convenient. You're taking vacations. There's no school, all that kind of stuff. You can go on college visits in the summer. It's not as good because your child isn't getting the feel when all the kids are running around, right? There's probably summer school, but it might even be like reunions are going on. And so that's completely not. So that's a little tougher. If you can do it when kids are in school, at least before you make that final decision, that's better. And what I did with mine is, like I said, they saw a few of them with my parents, but then when they got in and we dialed into how much is this going to cost? And then we literally, especially with my daughter, throughout schools, I'm like, their program, their social work program is as good as JMU, but not better. You already love JMU and it's infinitely cheaper. This school's a pain to get to. All those things. I'm like, we're not even going to visit. It's just like, and I won't name schools. There was nothing wrong with the schools. I'm like, you're on paper here. This just doesn't make sense. And you already love this school that I know the price point is way lower. So you got to think about it this way and not, it's emotional, but not as emotional. So we visited certain schools and I handpicked, Indiana, and I took daughter to Baylor, and we looked and we did the tours, but not all of them. We just didn't. We ruled out some
Mhm.
of them based on her even saying, yeah, I don't even think I want to look there because of XYZ, and JMU has this, whatever it happens to be. And I will say sometimes, I don't know if any of your kids had this, but some schools will do what they call fly-ins where they'll fly kids in. And there was a school in Pennsylvania that flew both my kids, not because they're Rhodes Scholars, but because they were like, wow, Washington kids, let's wow them on campus. It would be great to
Mhm.
get some more kids from the state of Washington. And so that's a way for your kids to see a campus. We went and stayed with friends in Jersey and visited as parents, and they did their whole kid thing. So that also could be an option. I mean, schools are under way more financial constraints now, so I don't know if they're doing fly-ins as much, but that's another thing that might work out.
I like what you said about pain to get to. I mean, that is something you learn pretty quickly when you go visit how hard some schools are hard to get to.
Yeah.
And you're going to be putting your kid on 2 connecting flights and then driving, back roads I mean, is that okay? Is that, it looked great on paper and then you have to actually get there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that
Yeah.
is one thing you learn pretty quickly. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just all these things. And hopefully people are like, ooh, I didn't think of that. That's the whole point. Hopefully you're getting some pointers here. So now let's talk about, so you hit campus. We've talked about the tours. So there will be official tours. They will do admissions and financial aid sessions. And a lot of campuses, when your child gets in, they will do prospective student days, right?
Mhm.
So then you could, which is fun because then you can go with a bunch of other kids that got in. I
Mhm.
mean, that's a fun thing. So that could be an option, but you don't have to visit on one of those days. So let's talk about going on a tour. You're not admitted, but you're looking at the school seriously. So you would do a tour. What else would you recommend, Jonathan?
To me, I think it just requires a little planning beforehand. And you can do some things. And the pointer that I like to give parents is two things that come to mind. One is join the parents group on Facebook before you go when you start thinking the school is serious, because you'll read things that the current parents are talking about that are not broadcast everywhere.
Yep.
And maybe they're just particular to some kids, but maybe there's something like there's an issue with this or an issue with that you want to ask about. That's one thing. And the other is you can read the school's newspaper and see things. Those are all online now, and you can see some topics. Sometimes there'll be courses considered being cut kind of headline, and you're like, whoa, that's the course I want to take. And what's that about? Or you can just read all sorts of information in there. Look at a map of the campus. I mean, what are the buildings? What are the places? Tours don't go everywhere. They can't. So they hit the prettiest things, the nicest pal, bang for the buck. But maybe you want to go see if your kid's going to be in a certain field of study. You want to go see that department. You want to walk around and look at the classes, talk to some of the people in the hall, maybe a professor. I remember one tour, we got there early and a chemistry professor, our son wanted to look at chemistry, gave us a tour of the brand new chemistry building at the school. It was
Nice.
just, it was so nice. Yeah, he just went out of his way and suddenly you're thinking, wow, not only is this impressive facility, he was really nice to do that.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
it shows
people,
the
right,
kind of
the kind
culture
of people
there.
that are there. Sure, exactly.
Yeah.
So those are some things that you can do beforehand, but you kind of want to cater to me, the tour to, or the visit to the things that are important for your family, not just the standard things that the school's going to give you, but do you want to go to the basketball stadium or arena or the football stadium? Do you want to go to the bookstore, which everybody does? Do you want to go to the eating hall,
Yeah.
dining
I always
facility?
say,
What's important?
go eat in the dining hall. Not
Yeah.
that that's, back when we were in college, food was always
The
stinky. I
food was
mean, my
awful.
school was pretty good, I gotta say, but that should not be a make or break. Oh, the food wasn't good. I mean, to me, that's kind of a rite of passage. Maybe not anymore for college,
No,
but
but they do have reviews of food on
yeah.
campuses that you can look for
Oh, yeah,
before
they
you
rate
go.
them.
Yeah.
I think it was the
Right,
last one
exactly.
I saw it wasn't that long ago. I think it was UMass Amherst was number 1. JMU was pretty good. JMU was really
It
good,
was
and
awesome.
where I
Yeah.
went, Cornell was pretty back in the day, was pretty good, but But again, that's not a reason not to go, but it just gives you a flavor. See a dorm. Like some tours will take you to a dorm, but to Jonathan's point, it's going to probably be the nicest, beautiful dorm, not that you can just pop into a dorm. I don't think you can even walk into dorms anymore for
Yeah.
security reasons. And you're not going to ask some random kid, can I see your dorm? I mean, that would probably freak the
Well,
kid out a little bit, but if but like I know my daughter did this for friends of mine that had kids that were interested in JMU. And I'm like, Shan, go show this kid around, unofficially, So if you know people that have kids that are at the school, that's great too, to
mhm.
just take them out to lunch and have them show you some cool stuff and traditions that, to your point, John, they can't show you everything on the door. And then you can kind of get the straight scoop. And I remember going with my dad because for some whatever reason, my dad did all of taking me
Mhm.
around. And he was like, "We need to go up to some of these young kids and talk to them." And I was like, but it's really like you just walk up to some kid on the quad and say, what do you love about this school? What would you want to change if there's anything? Like, what is it like on the weekends? That's a big question for state schools. Like, do a lot of kids go home? And so, my kids both went to Indiana and JMU. There were state schools, but they weren't going home on the weekend. So it was good to know, like, do a bunch of the kids clear out and go home? Well, then they're just sitting there. They're not going home. So there's just different things that, kids will just openly share. And if the kids aren't
Mhm.
super nice, like the chemistry professor was so nice, that's a data point. Like, oh, these kids aren't that friendly. Is that the atmosphere here? So it's just really doing everything you can to get a feel for what is this place really like?
I love what you said about connecting with students. At every school, the first thing we visited, the first thing we tried to do was who do we know who was there? And and then we'd get our kids to reach out to them and say, I'm coming for a visit. Can I meet you? Just for a little bit, not for the entire day. And most of the time they were able to, and gave kind of a behind the scenes thing, had some coffee, just walked around and talked about what life was like at the school,
Yeah,
which was
exactly.
huge. I mean,
Yeah.
there was so much, and our kids, at least, much easier for them to take advice from a peer
Oh, yeah.
than
Yeah.
from us,
Then
you know?
parents. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, my gosh. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a great idea, Peg.
So I would say too, then just to get a little bit more micro. So your child gets in, you visited maybe, but now you're really doing the visit, or maybe you haven't. Like my kids, like now, okay, this is on the short list. We're going to go visit. I would say something that I think you alluded to earlier, but something that you and the parent might be leading the charge on this one as far as questions to ask when you get there. But in my mind, you're going to the university placement office, hands down. And then if the college has their own placement office, like Kelly School of Business at IU had their own placement office,
Mhm,
they handed us a slick quarterly report for where the
mhm.
kids were going in their major, what they averaged out. I mean, it was very impressive. So, because ultimately your child is going to school to figure out what they want to do to impact the world and get a job, and you're not supporting them after, right? So the placement and what companies come, do companies come for internships? Is there opportunity sophomore year, junior year? How does that work? What about firms that come to recruit kids who are, and your child might not be as good at understanding all those questions because they're kids, right? So to me, this is a part where the parents would lead the charge a little bit. It's not the sexy see the dorms and the climbing walls kind of thing. But I think that I don't know that you need to do that when your child's a sophomore and you're just looking at a campus. But when you're really deciding, that could be the difference between two schools. Like, wow, they have a bunch of companies or nonprofits or whatever that pull from this school. And that's what your interest versus, yeah, this school, the answers we got, they weren't as robust, not as impressive. I think that's definitely something on that list for before we make the decision.
That's a big one. I totally agree with you. I get the privilege of doing a financial literacy kind of talk to group of high school seniors every year, and I've done it for a long time. And every year I ask them, why do they want to go to college? And the number one answer is always, and they do mean this, but it's to get a better job, so to speak, than if they don't go to college. And that's, make more money. And there are other reasons, but that's always the number one reason. Well, I mean, shouldn't you go to visit the office that is responsible for that sort of thing, at least partially at the school where the school designates all that, and talk to them, just like Peg said. Ask some questions about job placement, and at least show your son or daughter where this place is and that it's important, and here are the people. And most students don't go to the placement office until senior year, honestly, and that's not a good idea. So you can break the ice a bit. You can kind of show them that it's a priority by including it on your visit, and you can also learn something. So it's a great idea.
Yeah, and you will see differences in how different schools answer questions and how robust it is. And that's just, it's a data point. All of this they're all data points. And I know this is an emotional decision, but you kind of got to take the emotion out a little bit and help your kids do that and not go hook, line, and sinker. I mean, if your child's in love with the state school and has always been, I know families, they're just big Wazoo families, Washington State or whatever. And it's like, yeah, my kids, I just met a guy at church, and the pastor, and he's like, all my kids have gone to Northern Arizona University. I've got 3 there. I've got 1 more. She's going to follow. So that's just their thing. So that's an affordable option. But for most people, it's a little bit more complicated than that. So just that's a really important piece that I think people, like to your point, they think about it once their kids are thinking about an internship or thinking about, okay, senior year's here. You got to start looking for a job. And it's better to kind of interview these places, see how robust they are as you're making your decision. So, okay, so let's wrap this up. And do you have a key takeaway you want to share of all this stuff that we got into today?
It's a ton of great information, and thanks for having me on here. To me, go back to that kind of open house analogy. If you're visiting an open house, you're going to look around at the places in that house that are important to you. If you're a big cook, you're going to check out the kitchen. If you have family, and you're going to look for, where's the family going to play, where's the kid, where the kid's going to be, what's the yard like. You're going to look at the places that are more important to you, and you should do that with your visits too. And that just takes a little planning, but you can plan a little bit beforehand. It's a trip, and say, okay, we're going to go see these places. If they're not on the tour, we're just going to spend an hour afterwards and drop in and check out. And we've given you some ideas of what those places might be, but it really depends on you and your family and what's important to you. So kind of make sure the visit caters to your needs, not just what the school wants to send you on.
Yeah. That's great.
That's my big role, other than the money one, which is huge.
That's was going to be what I was going to hit on, is just to share it one more time, not to overdo it, but figure out where you fit financially at different types of schools before you even get into this with your kids, because it's going to save you a lot of stress if you're married, between spouses. Like, decide on what's affordable, not to the penny, but oh wow, this school, they cost 85, and we're going to be paying 85, but wow, this school costs 85, and again, go into our software and it could be 65, or that's a massive difference. So in your budget matters, and then what these schools do, because they're all discounting their sticker prices, but they don't do it for every family. They all have their own business plans and ways of doing it. So that's just a really important first step. And honestly, if you need to spend a little money to figure this out and get help, like if you're hearing that going, oh my God, I'm not a first person, like do it. And I'm not saying this self-serving higher cap. I mean, we are the best out there, but you are talking about making a huge investment. So approach this as, an investment in your child. And even if it's in state, it's big money. It's $35,000 all in, with room and board if they're not living at home. So that's in my book. I don't care how much money you make. That's a lot of money. So just keep that in mind. And then setting those expectations for your kids along the way, because they'll fall. If you set the expectations, then you're laying the groundwork, instead of at the end being like, how do we deal with this? And you and I have seen that time and time again. And it's just sad because it's avoidable. It truly is avoidable. And some of the heartache that kids feel, and parents, when they go through this when kids are seniors. So, just do that before you go on the visit. And hopefully all this stuff we've shared, hopefully you're taking some notes, or you can listen to it again. And that gets you prepared to have some really fun and productive college visits. So Jonathan, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Peg.
And we will see you all next time. Next time we will be doing our Q&A grab bag. So we do that the last Thursday of every month. And unbelievably, it's almost the end of May. Send in your questions. You can send them to support@collegeaidpro.com. And we will do our best, Matt and I, next week. We go through as many as we can get through in our time. So that's the opportunity to get our insights on something that maybe is keeping you up at night. Have a great rest of the day. And again, thanks again, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you like what you heard, please follow us, share the show, or maybe even send it to a parent or a counselor who you think would enjoy it. I'm your host, Peg Keough. Today I spoke with Jonathan West, a CAP financial aid expert, and we did a deep dive into all things college visits. This episode was produced by the wonderful Aya Massoud and Eileen Campbell. We'll see you back here next week.